Hello, US 101 history class with my CCAP class of the semester. We are in the last week before final. And so, but what I first want to do is a summary of what we just covered. And then I want to talk about your grades a little bit to help you out since we have a little time to prep for this and go over a few things. So, I know a lot of you. It's hard. It's easy to get burned out right now. I just was in my in-person class on the West Campus and covering the same information that you guys are getting, and my poor students look like, I don't know, I felt bad, like they were being punished just to be in the classroom. They had the holiday, tired, it's the end of the semester. It's hard to keep momentum. But I want to encourage all of you to keep it up. And of course, it's an important factor in closing up, this section of history, this very important and crucial part of our history. Now, I'll do one more summary and announcement for the exam next week. But for now, let's just talk about what we have just covered, and then I want to go over some important aspects for your grades you must pay attention to. So, so we went over the Civil War, and in the discussions, I noticed you all saw very clearly that these declarations of secession that were made by the South, that Alexander Stephens, the first and last vice president of the Confederacy, in his cornerstone speech, they all stated slavery was the fundamental reason for their breaking away and creating the Confederacy itself. A lot of you didn't mention the Confederate Constitution, which kept slavery. It made sure that no laws were allowed to change or get rid of slavery in their Constitution. So, had the Confederacy won, or at least enough to exist, whether it be take over all the United States or just be separate. What would that look like in a world now? I mean, with a constitution that proclaimed that there would be no law that could get rid of slavery. So that's a grim and interesting what-if story. But the reality is, of course, is that they lost and that didn't get to be implemented. So you guys all kind of looked at that. You also really did a good job of analyzing the Karl Marx information. And so I thought this was interesting because the topic of communism still gets brought up. After all, Zoran Mandani in New York, the man that's got elected, it's going to be the mayor, is a democratic socialist, but he's accused of being a communist by many people still in this country. The topic of communism is still a topic. And what's interesting is that almost nobody knows, even people who like him, I think, that he was so heavily engaged with the Civil War. So, and writing on it, and I really enjoyed seeing a lot of you just kind of delving into that part of Karl Marx's lesser-known legacy. Okay, so having said that, what do I want to say about grades? Let's just talk about this for a second. Let's talk about where we're at and what's been going on. These announcements have always been required as a part of the class. And they have not been watched a lot. The reason why I know that is I had a lot of students turning in late work when I posted 2 announcements in a row that Sunday the 30th is the last day I can take in late work. Now, some of you got some work in a few hours or even a few minutes after the deadline. That's okay. I went ahead and graded those. But I want to remind you all something. First of all, I take in late work way more than most professors would. And some of you have good excuses. There's no judgment. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I want you to understand something about the college experience. It's like being late for work too much, or forgetting that you had a shift and not showing up at all. You can do that sometimes and have a good excuse, especially when you have hard work, but eventually you're going to get fired. Professors don't have time. I had almost 200 students this semester. So the getting the work on time thing, and paying attention to those deadlines, those are crucial. And sometimes, again though, if you have something in your life personal that is more important. And I don't ever like question or judge people based on when they say why that they are late on assignments. I'm late, but again, if you're chronically having that problem, it's going to be a hard sell for a professor. And you could have good excuses every time too. Sometimes it's just life is like that. I've had semesters for me as a student that was terrible, but you just got to understand the situation your professor's in. So here we are. I allowed as much late work as possible, giving full points up until November 30th. And I had to write a message even to remind everybody, no more late work. Okay? I can't take any more late at this time, late in the game, when I have this many students and I got to grade exams and get your grades in within 48 hours or whatever after the final time. So at this point, I'm just under a time crunch. If you really are feeling desperate and you feel like you got a good case to make, you can still write to me and I can look and see how much space, if there's just maybe a few assignments you need to get the grade you want. But I can't guarantee I'm going to do it at this point. But I am giving you the allowance to reach out to me. And if you're going to do that, I don't want 7 paragraphs to explain. Just, you can write to me a short and concise message and I'll see what I can do. Okay. Again, though, this is not about shaming anybody or making you feel bad. I'm working a lot myself. Okay. And then the other thing about citations on essays, I really think that it's easy for students to kind of gaslight themselves. You're tired, you're exhausted, you don't want to do the paper anyways. Maybe sometimes you write an essay and you say, okay, it came from a documentary. Why can't I just say, okay, all this stuff comes from a documentary and I'm just writing from here? Why do I have to put it in citations? Why do I have to break it up, an essay, into paragraphs and then put it within the text? I want you to understand something. I grade very leniently on the papers in terms of the demands that you're going to get at a university as well. If you remember, I said that if you were going to be doing history at like a UC, for example, and I'm pretty sure Stan State does the same thing, you would have to use Chicago style. And it's a much more rigorous set of demands in terms of how to do the citations. It drives me crazy. It drove me crazy when I was in college. I hated it. But part of your degree, why it makes you still appealing to employers, is because it doesn't just say that you know what history is or that you're a biology major, that you did biology. It says that you understand how to do multifaceted sets of instructions and get them done on a deadline. That's what your degree translates to. That's why also a lot of people work in jobs that aren't based on their degrees, because the degree says something about your integrity, your hard work, and it says you have an understanding about instructions and how to lay out those things. And so sometimes some of those instructions might seem pointless, and I get it, but that's also not the point. What I was mainly trying to get you guys to understand on the citations part is that you can't avoid them, and to get in the habit and the practice of laying them out when there's a paraphrase or direct quote. And it's never going to change. Okay? There can be personal responses. There are assignments that you can still have in some classes. It may be a history class. If a professor said, okay, watch this film with us in class, and I want a response on this paper just about the film. Maybe they don't ask for a citation. But what I've been doing for you guys is I didn't give you a particular style to do but I wanted you to, get into the practice of thinking through and putting them together, because also AI is a thing. We already had this conversation. So I've actually had this conversation quite a bit with you guys and a lot of different announcements, right? And so here we are. So I had it again. And I just want to make that clear. You always got to do that. Okay. Now look, honestly, it's been great being with you guys. The work is pretty solid. If you look at your grades, you guys should all be very proud of yourselves. And I think that I've helped get you guys into the right zone. You're showing that you are mainly ready for college, and I'm just giving you little tidbits and things in there to try to help get you guys really ready, because I want you to succeed, and I know you want to succeed, and I see that a lot of you are putting in the hard work, and that speaks for every one of you here, that has been turning in work and doing your best. And even if you forgot the citations for the 7th time, and I've been saying that to you, hey, look, it's okay. For me, I was a late bloomer, so you guys are way ahead of me. Okay, way ahead of me academically than I was in high school. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. You're mind-blowingly ahead of me. I was a mess. I was just barely getting out of... I went to a continuation high school for home study to catch up on my grades. I had an F in history. And so, and then when my daughter was born later on, and I was working at a cafe as a barista, then I finally realized I got to go back to school. So, we all have different levels of development and how we can figure things out at what time and what motivates us. So that's all I really wanted to kind of say and all that stuff. So if you listen to this far, cool. I hope that you had a great holiday, and good luck on just finishing up everything for the rest of the semester, not just my class, but all your other classes as well. And we'll be in touch.